Well, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone here today. I was honored last week when Fuzzy called and asked me to be the MC of this ceremony. Fuzzy has been a close friend of mine for many years, as I'm sure that each and everyone here would attest. He's done so much for so many people. Just to be a small part of this ceremony is a very humbling and gratifying experience. And Fuzzy and Edie, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Before we begin, I would like to thank certain folks that are here and recognize certain dignitaries. To begin with, let me first of all thank the members of the Belfry DAV Chapter 141, Fred Baldwin, the commander, and Jim Hunt for the solo here today. To begin with, we have in the audience former Governor Paul Patton, who is president of Pikeville College, and beside of him is President-elect James Hurley, the soon-to-be president of Pikeville College. Would all the magistrates who are here today please stand up? And we also have here today Mr. Roger Wagner, Superintendent of Pike County Schools, with Mr. Virgil Osborne, one of the board members here in attendance today. Pike County Attorney Howard Keith Hall. Pike County PVA Lonnie Osborne. We have House Speaker Greg Stumbo and Representative Leslie Combs. We have Justice Will T. Scott of the Kentucky Supreme Court. Pike Circuit Judge Eddie Coleman, I believe, is here today. Pike District Judge Darrell Mullins. Pike Circuit Court-elect Anna Pinson is here. Fuzzy's nephew, Constable James Worley, is here. We have Belfry High School Principal Rod Varney and several members of his staff. Kentucky's all-time winningest high school football coach, Philip Haywood, is here today. And I hope I haven't missed anyone. I would like to extend on behalf of Rodney Scott and Representative W. Keith Hall. They could not be here today. Rodney's in training. Keith had a prior business commitment and could not be here. I would also like to ask all the folks who are employed by District 12 to stand up. They do such a great job in putting these events on and the work that they do on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth. Thank you. And all the members of and employees of the Pike Fiscal Court, would you please stand? And last, two other groups, the members of the Belfry Fire Department that are here today. And last, a very special group that holds a very special place in Fuzzy's heart. Would the employees of the Pike County Sheriff's Department please stand? At this time, I would like Jimmy Wolford to come forward for a special musical presentation. Jimmy's not going to be here? Okay. At this time, then, I would ask that Magistrate Chris Harris, the Fuzzy's hometown magistrate, come forward and say a few remarks.
Thank you very much. Let me first say that I was honored too when Fuzzy called and asked me to say a few words today about him. I'll tell you, it's kind of a funny story. I was at the house on Saturday morning, out in the backyard working, and my 7-year-old daughter comes out with the phone, and she's running out. I'm in the backyard, and she's running out, and her eyes are just really big, and she's got this big smile on her face, and she said, "Daddy, it's Fuzzy." So she, if anybody in our area, Pike County, has the rock star status, it's Fuzzy Keesee. And that was true. A few weeks ago, we had a special presentation at the Southside Elementary School, and Fuzzy was kind enough to come over and talk about what being a sheriff's all about and some of the great things that sheriffs do in Kentucky. And we introduced all the elected officials. Many of them are here today that were there talking about county government, the important role that county government plays. And after the ceremony was over, or the program was over, the teachers said, now, elected officials are going to stay around. If any of you want to talk to the elected officials, they'll be here to answer any questions that you have. Well, as soon as that was said, almost all the students got up and ran to Fuzzy. And he was signing autographs, and in his great style and his trademark smile, he signed every autograph and shook every hand and hugged every kid there, and that says a lot about the man. And you know, we think Fuzzy of much of a local personality, but Fuzzy's known all over Kentucky. He's one of the most liked sheriffs in Kentucky's history. And some of my friends that are sheriffs and former sheriffs around the state, when they found out that he was having a ceremony, they asked me to read a couple things for him. And one is from former Marshall County Sheriff and U.S. Marshal Brian Roy. I know you know Brian. He says, Fuzzy's a close personal friend of mine and mentor to me throughout my many years of service in law enforcement. Now keep in mind, Marshall County is about as far west in Kentucky as we are east in Kentucky. We, along with many other sheriffs, worked side by side back in 1984 to successfully pass legislation that would rightfully provide sheriffs the opportunity to seek re-election and allow departments to professionalize and ultimately become known for the way that they're allowed to operate today. Fuzzy's a true professional that has dedicated his entire life towards serving the people of Pike County, the Kentucky Sheriff's Association, along with anyone else that's ever had the opportunity to know him. Fuzzy is the best of the best, and as his friend, I'm excited to know that for his tireless efforts, his fellow Pike Countyans are recognizing him with this dedication. I hope he never catches me speeding, and wish for him and his family the very best. That's from Brian Roy. Another is a former Woodford County Sheriff, which is in the middle of the state, Denny Nunley, who's also Executive Director of the Kentucky Association of Counties. Denny says, congratulations, Sheriff Keesee, on having a quarter named in your honor. Such a great achievement bestowed on a well-deserving individual. The entire KCO board and staff wish you many years of continued service, not only to Pike County, but all the counties across Kentucky. May you continue to inspire others as you have inspired me. And probably the neatest one is a current serving sheriff who has served just as long as Fuzzy has, if you can believe that. And that is from Warren County Sheriff Peanut Gaines. And Peanuts and Fuzzy have been friends a long time, and he says, Fuzzy, congratulations congratulations are in order, the road being named after you. I know when you took office, it was probably a dirt road and you had to travel by mule. Buddy, I wish I could be there with you. You are truly the dean of Kentucky sheriffs. So that's a well-deserved from Peanuts Gaines. You know, county officials across Kentucky, they've got a special bond and respect for one another that transcends politics. And while just about everybody knows how popular Fuzzy is politically, not everybody knows all the good things that he's done, the good works that he's been involved in. A couple years ago, I was out in western Kentucky at the Fancy Farm picnic, and I had the opportunity to tour the sheriff's ranch out there. And I can tell you that I was very impressed with all the things they do for disadvantaged children, but I was very proud to know that in taking the tour, there was a big bronze plaque there, and it gave me a lot of pride to see a Pike County name on that plaque as being one of the founders of the Kentucky Sheriff's Ranch, and that was Charles Fuzzy Keesee. So he does a lot of good things, and this is a well-deserved honor. And Fuzzy, I just want to say congratulations.
At this time, I would like to ask Kentucky Speaker Greg Stumbo to come to the podium.
Thank you, Senator Jones, and thank you, Sheriff, for asking me to come and be here today. I was thinking on the way up about some of the stories that we all know about Fuzzy, Lonnie, and I was thinking about telling some, and I tell stories on Fuzzy occasionally across the state. People will ask, well, is that a true story? And I'll say, no, unfortunately, we can't tell the true stories yet. But I'll share a story with you. When I was running for Attorney General, Fuzzy was taking me out through Pike County, and we were up near Beefhide. And there was a lady there, and I believe it was Miss Justice. I'm not sure, but I believe it was Miss Justice. And Fuzzy said, well, go up and knock on her door and put a sign right there. It's a good place to put a sign on that hillside. It kind of sloped down toward the road where everybody could see it. So I went up and asked her and told her I was with Fuzzy, and she said, you're welcome to put a sign up. So I was down there putting the sign up, Paul, and I wasn't paying attention, and her dog came behind me and bit me on the leg. And it broke my skin, and there I was bleeding, James, and and Fuzzy come running up out of the car, and I thought he was going to check on me, but he ran up the hill, and he said, Miss Justice, is that dog all right? Now, that's the kind of politician that Fuzzy Keesee is, ladies and gentlemen, but, he is Kentucky's longest-serving sheriff. He succeeded his father, I'm told, to this office. He has been active in the Kentucky Sheriff's Association. Fuzzy, you've been president of the Kentucky Sheriff's Association. He's been active in the National Sheriff's Association. I got to know him really well when I was Attorney General, because Fuzzy was not only a friend, he gave me advice. We talked a lot about the war on drugs. Fuzzy was one of the pioneers in the war on drugs in Kentucky. Fuzzy Keesee, ladies and gentlemen, recognized, Mr. Barney, that we had a problem in Kentucky with our drug situation, and he cracked down on it years before anybody else was even paying a lot of attention to it. And so I was honored to have worked with him, and we did a big roundup one day, Fuzzy, when he came up here, and Fuzzy opened the door to me with other sheriffs like Peanuts Gaines across the state, and we did similar type investigations in other parts of the state, utilizing the resources of the Kentucky Sheriffs of Kentucky at that time. They helped us with the child pornography stings that made national headlines. They helped us with the drug operations, with the KBI drug operations when we confiscated more drugs. The Kentucky Sheriffs and the Attorney General's office during my 4 years confiscated more drugs in Kentucky than the FBI, the DEA, and unfortunately the Kentucky State Police, all three put together, because we used the law the legislature gave us. And Fuzzy and I talked a lot about it, and we grabbed these drugs as they were coming in via the internet with the help of UPS and FedEx, who knew where those drugs were going to. So Fuzzy, I tell you, congratulations. It's an honor to be here with you today. I wish I could tell some of those stories, and at some point in time, I know when you and I retire and the statute of limitations runs out, we'll be happy to do that. Fuzzy, congratulations. It's a wonderful day for you. You've been a great public servant, and God bless you.
Justice Will Scott.
Thank you all. And Fuzzy, thank you, and Ms. Keesee, and for the opportunity to come here and speak today. We're all really lucky in our lives and in this community to have giants among us. I'm talking about real giants who really raise up a people and raise up the spirit of a community and or a state and make it more than what it thought it could be. We have several of these giants in front of me. We have several of these giants behind of me, all of which have made Kentucky and Pike County a much better place for us today as well as tomorrow. The giant that I really want to commend and speak of today, though, is behind me on my left, Charles Fuzzy Keesee. Giants are people that teach us that life is not about falling down, it's about getting up. That teach us not to worry about dodging the storms of life that are going to come upon us as people and or our communities, but to learn to build in the rain they're going to bring. They teach us to care about our people and do what we should do for our people, no matter what the personal cost to us. And they always give us advice, generally when we don't want it. But it's always the right advice. And as a community, we were lucky here to have giants arise among us starting about 50 years ago. And as I drove over here today on beautiful 119 and looked at all the economic activity along the way and here in Belfry, I thought about what a debt we owe to these several giants, including the speaker here, who have given most of their life to us. And we're very thankful for that. And Sheriff, I appreciate all the things you've done for me. You know, when I first came back from Vietnam and finally got my education and came back here to Pike County, Fuzzy was always there to say something loud if it needed to be said, or to whisper it if it was something that should be whispered. So when I was defending in the courtroom, he was there as a guide, a giant for me. When I was prosecuting in the courtroom, he was there, a giant for me. And when I was a circuit judge, he was there, a giant for me. And in the last 8 years that I have loved serving the people of Eastern Kentucky and Kentucky on the Supreme Court of Kentucky, he's been there for me, a giant for me. And he's been a giant for you. So thank you, Sheriff. And we want you to always be Sheriff. Never leave us. Thank you.
Before I bring up a gentleman who needs no introduction to the people of Pike County, I want to say a few words. First of all, I want to ask Edie and the members of the Keesee family to stand up for a second. You know, Edie and I have had a lot of conversations here in the last few months about, and I think my wife and Edie may have had a conversation or two about how difficult public service actually is. And when you look back over Fuzzy's long career, he has been blessed to have a family that has supported him, because I truly believe without his family's support and their love and encouragement, it will be virtually impossible for any public servant to stay in office for the length of time that Fuzzy has done it, and having done the remarkable job that he has. You know, growing up in Pike County, there's been two things that have been pretty much constant throughout my life, and one was Wayne Rutherford, and the other is Fuzzy Keesee. I mean, both of these gentlemen have been icons in our political community for decades. I want to share one little story that I think you'll find a little bit humorous. Back in 2000, in the general election, I was out campaigning, and I was campaigning with Fuzzy and Bill Deskins. And as you know, Fuzzy and Bill ran a few races against each other. And we were up in Pond Creek, and I had both of them with me. And every door that we knocked on, a person would come to the door, Fuzzy, honey, give him a hug, kiss on the cheek, come in, have something to eat, sit down. And we did that for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, everywhere we went, you know, as soon as they saw him, I mean, they beat him on the front porch. Finally, Bill Deskins looks over at me. Fuzzy's over talking to somebody. I said, now I want you to vote for Ray Jones, this fine young man here, so I want you to vote for him. After we had done that 3 or 4 hours, Bill looked over at me and said, now you know why I never could beat him. You know, back 2 or 3 years ago, there's 1 or 2 people that when you're a young politician, when the phone rings, you absolutely make sure that you don't have to return the phone call. You take it right then, and Fuzzy's one of those people. Well, after the 2000 census numbers came in, we had lost quite a bit of population in Pike County. And there was a couple provisions that were on the books that, because of the loss of population, was going to cost the taxpayers in Pike County thousands of dollars, if you remember this, Fuzzy. When we dropped below 70, I think we dropped below 70,000, it was going to cost Fuzzy's office, and I believe maybe Lily and Pearl's office, quite a bit of money. And he said, Senator, we need legislation filed to address this issue. So I got the bill ready and went over and talked to Speaker Stumbo about it. And we finally were able to get the bill through the Senate. We get it over in the House committee. And the committee chairman calls the bill. So, of course, I get up to go up to the front table to explain the bill to the members of the committee. And as I stand up, 3 or 4 sheriffs from Central Kentucky stand up. Now, this bill basically only applied to Pike County and maybe one other county. So when I see these 3 or 4 other sheriffs stand up, I'm like, what's going on here? So I go up, sit down. They sit beside me. And, of course, we get the bill through committee, and I look over at these fellows and said, what are you guys doing here? They said, well, Fuzzy called us and told us that we need to be over here to express our support for this bill. And that's just one example of the respect that Fuzzy has in the sheriff and law enforcement community across Kentucky. He is truly a legend, and we have been blessed to have him as a public servant in this county for the many decades of service that he's provided. At this time, I would like Judge Wayne T. Rutherford to come forward. Judge Rutherford needs no introduction, and he will introduce the man of the hour. Thank you.
Senator Jones and Governor Patton and fellow officials and all the dignitaries on the platform and those in the audience. I have a great staff, and they work anytime I'm going to speak somewhere. They try to gather up information for me, and they've done a great job today. And I've got some information in here. But what I'm going to talk to you today from my heart, what I talked to you about one of my best friends in my lifetime. He's reminded me twice, reminded me again today. He said, Judge, this is not a roast. And I know when Chick come in, him and Magistrate Robinson was talking to him, and Fuzzy come over and said, whisper your ear, said, now I told you it's not a roast. So I'm like Speaker Stumbo. I'll have to wait till the time to tell a few tales, and certainly we can do that. But today we're here for a different reason. And I know that Fuzzy Keesee was one of 9 children, born to Moss Keesee, who's sheriff of this county, and Della Myers Keesee, his wife. Gosh, what a lady. Fuzzy, your mother, as you know, I loved your mother, and your mother loved me. And I always told his mother when she'd hug me that she said, I've never voted against you, and I said, I've never voted against your son or your husband. So I certainly have been close to the Keesee family. I know that some have passed on of the 9 children, Clyde and Helen and Lorraine and Mary Jane, and of course Nancy, and Nancy's here, and brother Albert, and he's in the ARH hospital, and need for you all to talk to the Lord about his health, and hopefully that the Lord can lift him up, and I know that that's a burden on this family and a burden on all of us here today that knows we're standing here today in Albert in the ARH hospital. Alvin and Franklin and those names that Moss and Della gave them, imagine about the history that goes with each name of those. But Fuzzy played basketball here at Belfry. Folks, I saw him in Louisville sweep a snow loft to get a seat down to watch Belfry play. Probably one of the there are great people love the sports here in Belfry, but one of your best fans has been Fuzzy Keesee over the years. I've stood at many football, basketball games with Fuzzy here and other places, and what Fuzzy has meant to this school and to this community in this area of Pike County. And Fuzzy, of course, played sports here. Billy Harold, and many of you Pond Creekers remember Billy Harold, was a coach in Division I. coached for, was it Moorhead, matter of fact, at one time, and Shelby County won the state basketball tournament here in the Commonwealth. And Fuzzy and I, when we would take prisoners down, we would stop and see Billy Harold at Shelby County. He took Shelby County to the state tournament and won the state championship. Billy Harold said, "Judge, I'd have been the All-Stater if Fuzzy hadn't shot them all when they gave the ball to him." But Fuzzy was a good a great ball player, and he had, if I remember, Fuzzy, you had John R. Phillips on that team, and you had Sailor Runyon, and you had Breezy Bevins, I think, was there playing with you, and others on that team, but it was great. Fuzzy was active in school, active in sport, very popular. 1948, he married Evelyn, and we come to love Evelyn too, and then Mildred, and he has 5 grandchildren. Then Edie, a very special person. Edie is one that we've known her Dotson family and the Manis family and all, and you know, I've been through that, and I understand. And Edie is one that's lifted up Fuzzy and been at his side. And it is, and her family, and Fuzzy became part of her family and those children. Fuzzy served served this country. And I know that by the time that what I spent with him over the years, Fuzzy is one of the most patriotic persons that I know in a very serious conversation with. He loves the opportunity to live in our country, in our Commonwealth, and in our state. He served time in Franks, and I know that Fuzzy then, after he got out, he ended up down to Louisville, like a lot of people had to leave here. And if I remember, Fuzzy, you worked in a chemical factory or something down there. But I had the opportunity in later years to meet a fellow down there that had met Fuzzy, and I don't even remember his name, Fuzzy. His name was Lucky, his nickname was, and he told me, he said, "Look, first time I met that fellow, I thought I'd known him for years." But he said, Fuzzy, while he's in Louisville, before he came back to Pike County, to you all, what he meant to the people that he worked with, the people that he would chum with, was unbelievable, the influence that he had on them. And then when Fuzzy got back, he got into politics, and I was in politics. He got in politics before I did, just before I got in for the first race. And I was able to learn a little bit about politics. Fuzzy, as you know, all of you people that walk up to Fuzzy at any time, he always has his smile on the face, but he always has time for you. He always has time for you. And he, most of the time, will put his hand on your shoulder. And before you leave, he will pat you a little bit on the shoulder. But folks, let me tell you something. When I first started going around this county with Fuzzy, I learned more from him about people and how people felt and what was on their mind. Because Fuzzy would go up, and if he look at somebody and he'd say, "Judge, now, what's their name?" And I'd say that, Bill Jones. He'd say, "Hey, Bill, come here." When he'd leave, if we pulled out, and Bill Jones was standing out there, Fuzzy would be the one who'd say, "Bill, glad I got to see you today." But he was talking about whispering. Somebody mentioned it a while ago, but he always was whispering in your ear. Always, always. Fuzzy Keesee has attended more funerals than anybody else in this county. I've sat with him through hundreds of funerals. But he wasn't there because of politics, folks. Let me tell you about Fuzzy. When he comes to a funeral, and your family or anybody else, you know where he goes? He goes up to console that family and to show his respect of who's there. He don't go because he goes because he's Charles Fuzzy Keesee, and he's got it in here, and he wants to make the person who's going through that feel better. And he goes to the front, and if he can stay, he sits. If not, he goes to console and he leaves. So I do know that, and I do know that, you know, in Pike County politics, we gain weight. My feet's been under many of your tables, with Fuzzy, sometime without him, but throughout this county, and gosh, when you campaign this county, you lose weight. I made the race for Lieutenant Governor, Governor Patton. I lost 39 pounds running from one section of state to the other, but not in this county. Gosh, the people love you to come into their home and to talk about the problems of this county. Listen, let me tell you, the greatest listener. You know, it's all right to talk. Politicians, you hear it all the time, they talk. Look here, this fellow is as much as a listener as he is a talker. Go to his office. You all been there. We feel at home, don't we? We always do when we go to Fuzzy's office. Fuzzy Keesee will help anybody at any time, any station in life. He's got his core beliefs, and they're strong. He's patriotic. Let me tell you something else about Fuzzy. Fuzzy's talked about the Lord to me as much as anybody else. Fuzzy Keesee. Fuzzy knows what gives him the power and gives him he's been blessed to be able to be the longest serving sheriff, our sheriff in this county. Fuzzy Keesee is, I remember Fuzzy had the closest race he ever had, maybe the second race. I can remember that we left Pikeville. That was on the election, would have been on Tuesday. We left Monday morning about 6 o'clock. We returned back to Pikeville about 8 o'clock the next morning. We worked in that side of the county. Then we came in to Pond Creek, and we made our rounds over here. And then we left and went into Peter Creek. When daylight came the next morning, we was at Mouth Car, getting people out of bed, telling them that we had a close race and that we needed them to get the vote out. We needed them to make sure that the people in the precincts got out and voted. Sure enough, Fuzzy Keesee had a close race. We had to wait till way up in the morning, so you can tell we didn't get any sleep. And I remember the last precinct came in was Turkey Creek over here, and Fuzzy won by 125 votes, probably the closest race that he had ever had. There had not been any close races since that, if my memory is correct. But Fuzzy was a hard worker, but one thing about Fuzzy, one thing that I learned quick about people, how to treat people, he told me one time, and I'll never forget it, don't throw down an old friend to try to appease anybody or to try to make a new friend. And that's Fuzzy. Fuzzy is the patriarch of his family, no doubt about that. And what a family and what a support system that he's had through his family. But Fuzzy has been, and 39 years as sheriff, 31 of those consecutively. I want to thank Governor Patton and Judy. I know this wouldn't have been possible at this road, and I know the governor said over here the day we had that dedication that I didn't ask this road to be named after me, but it's nice. And Governor, it was apropos that this road be named after you, and now you all waived it, and a section of this road, your name will still be on the whole section, but it's shared with one of the greatest people that I know, the greatest. You can call them politicians if you want to, but this fellow's more than a normal politician. And you all know that. The family knows it, and everybody here and everybody in this county knows it. This fellow here is special. This fellow is special because he has it in here. He has the heart, the feeling, the caring. I love Pike County. He loves this county as much as I do. This fellow does. And I said at the beginning, and I'll repeat it, he's been one of my closest friends. God has blessed me in my life, and he's blessed me to have it. I appreciate Edie and the whole family and generation, and it's certainly a pleasure for me to be here today and to be honored by the ask to introduce this fellow who means so much to each of us. And Sir George, to all of you people from the Transportation Cabinet, to Senator Jones and to our state representatives who was involved in this, thank you all, and this fellow certainly deserves all the accolades that's been said about him and more because of who he is, what he stood for, and what his record is in this Commonwealth. One of the greatest public servants in this Commonwealth, Charles Fuzzy Keesee.
Let me say this. I left my glasses in the car, and I may not be seeing too good. But I appreciate all of you that's been here today, that's come here today. This is a great honor for me to have you here. It's beyond my dreams that this would ever happen to me. There's not much I can say that hasn't been said already. Thank you all for your kind words. Today marks one of the highest honors I have ever received. Today I rejoice with all of you and celebrate my 10 terms, the last 26 years being consecutively. As Sheriff of Pike County, today I salute with gratitude the people of Pike County, the Pike County Fiscal Court, our legislators, and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. Whether in office or out, I have done everything possible in my life to remain in contact with the people of Pike County. We write, we talk, phone, and when people visit the sheriff's office, we visit when they come to Pike County, or I see them when I am in their area. I give recommendations years after I first met them. Many times I have written letters for their parents as well. People of Pike County will always remain a part of my extended family. Luckily, to many of my friends and loved ones remained in Pike County, what a joy it has been to see each and every one of you. This is an humbling experience here today. I never dreamed of this high honor. I always felt I had to make something out of my life, and maybe this is evidence that I have done so. It was you, the people of Pike County, who made this day possible for me. I look at the crowd today, and I'm truly humbled to see so many people. And, believe it or not, I know most every single person in here today, this room today. I have strived to set an example during my time in office and out. I have always strived to be a caring sheriff, father, grandfather, husband, brother, and human being. Without the support of people like you along the way, I never would be standing here today. My service to Pike County is something I hold in the highest regard. I think we have the finest deputies in the state of Kentucky. One of my closest friends asked me recently why I wanted to be the sheriff of Pike County. I told him it just seemed like the right thing to do. That question caused me to reflect. Then I realized that my own life is not much different than the lives of many other people. Most are dedicated to service, their families, and to each other. Almost all of us worked very hard for the people of Pike County. I learned early on as sheriff that those who elected me had high expectations. No voter in any of my races ever delivered a talk that I had not heard before. I want to convey the message that I am here to serve the people, and that was the bottom line. I see your faces today, and I smile because I know after all these years as sheriff, I may have been doing something right. This means many things to me. It cuts through a place that has always been and will always be near to my heart, my hometown of Belfry. My fondest wish is that my friends, who are everyone I have ever met, will remember a motto that guided my life. There was time to learn, there was time to earn, now there is a time to return. I am reminded of that as I stand here in this beautiful facility located where I was born and raised. In closing, I am so happy and grateful, first to my wonderful wife, my children, my grandkids, my great-grandchildren, my employees and former employees, some of who are here, some are far away, my former colleagues, my friends on this stage, and all around the Pike County, and all those I'm a little nervous right now and joyful. And those who gave me purpose in life. Yes, and as an elected sheriff, I hope I have had the chance to make a difference in many lives. But now, thanks to everyone involved in this ceremony today, you have made a lasting difference in mine. Thank you very much. Now, if I'd had my glasses, I could have seen better. Thank you very much. I'm honored that you're here today. Thank you.
Before I ask Representative Combs to come up for a special presentation, I would like Governor Paul Patton to come up and say a few words. Governor Patton is a probably one of Fuzzy's closest friends and longtime political allies, and I think it's only appropriate we ask him to say a few words.
Well, I had the opportunity, I guess, to serve with 6 years as in the courthouse with Fuzzy Keesee, and let me tell you, when you serve in the courthouse, you really understand what government is all about. And I've got a lot of good Fuzzy stories, but I'm going to tell one. 1987, we were both running for re-election. And Fuzzy said, "Now, Judge, I just want one more term." And certainly he served the people well, and the people have rewarded him by sending him back to work for them for many years. So this is a very well-deserved honor, and to the extent that Judy and I had to relinquish something, we could relinquish it to no better person than the Fuzz.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like my colleague, Representative Leslie Combs, to come forward for a very special presentation.
Before I present this to Fuzzy, let me say what a great friend, true friend Fuzzy has been to our family and to me, and how supportive he has been of me. In fact, Fuzzy, if I talk much, I think I'm going to get a little emotional about it. But he's the fellas have been up here talking about Fuzzy saying little things to him or whispering to him about various things. I think of Fuzzy as E.F. Hutton. When he speaks, I listen. And he's very often put those little whispers in my ear, or when he's called me, He's always had some good advice to give me, and it's always very short and to the point, and he tells me what I need to know. Kind of along a little humorous line, one of the last phone calls I got from him here recently was on primary election day, just here recently, this past May. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, Ray, you look down, you see it's Fuzzy. You answer the phone. Yes, Fuzzy, what's going on? Leslie, I think you've got it. You've got it. Got no problems, honey. Come 6 o'clock, you'll be celebrating. I said, thank you, Fuzzy. Folks, I had no opposition. but that meant, I'm going to tear things up. That meant that on election day, though, he was going through and he was thinking about people, and I knew he was thinking about me. And he called just to give me that support and say, girl, you just keep doing what you're doing. And that's what he's always done. He's given me that support, and to him, I'm very, very appreciative of that because he's always given me the confidence I've needed too. So he's just a wonderful fella, and he's always been so gracious and so kind, and I've always appreciated him. When I say he's been very near and dear to our family, I'll tell you all the story. Back years ago when he was a teenager, my mother-in-law, her mother and daddy, Noah and Edie, and her brother, Danny, they grew up over here in Pond Creek. And Danny was about the same age as Fuzzy. And they ran together, just like teenage boys do. When they were about 16 or 17, one night they were all supposed to go out. Fuzzy, I think, got sick, but anyway, he couldn't go out with the fellas. That night the boys were in the car, and my husband's, what would have been uncle, was driving that car, and there was a car wreck. Danny died. Fuzzy was not there with him that night. Fuzzy, I'm glad you're here with us today. All right? So at this time, if I could, if Speaker Stumbo would join me over to my right, Senator Jones, because they're on this citation as well. And Fuzzy, if you'd come up here, we would like to present you with a citation from the state legislature, and it's for Charles E. Fuzzy Keesee, and in honor of the Charles E. Fuzzy Keesee Corridor by the Kentucky Legislature during the 2012 regular session of the Kentucky General Assembly in recognition of his nearly 4 decades of dedicated and meritorious service as the esteemed Pike County Sheriff. The longest-serving sheriff in the history of the Commonwealth, he is credited with having been instrumental in making many progressive changes within the department to better serve the citizens of the communities of Pike County, Kentucky. Admired and trusted for the integrity and professionalism he brought to his post, the members of this honorable body are delighted to join with Speaker Gregory Stumbo, Representative Leslie Combs, Representative Hubert Collins, Representative Debbie Keith Hall, and Senator Ray S. Jones, in extending sincere expressions of deepest gratitude to Charles E. Fuzzy Keesee, a distinguished Kentuckian, on this very special occasion. Fuzzy, I get to hug you.
Thank you very much. And one thing I didn't say, and I want to say this: I thank my Heavenly Father above for giving me the good health and the privilege to serve Pike County in the job that I've done. I appreciate that very much. I say that not the least, but I praise Him more each day and thank Him many times when I'm going to the office. I'm praying that He'll help me to have the wisdom to conduct the sheriff's office in a way that would be pleasing unto Him. I've done that all through most of my tenure as sheriff of Pike County. Thank you very much.
This time I would like Mary Westfall-Holbrook to come forward for the special presentation of the sign.
It's an honor to be here. I was raised here in Eastern Kentucky, and all my life I've heard of Charles Fuzzy Keesee, and it's an honor to do this presentation today. On behalf of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, it's an honor to name the corridor after you. But we always put a sign up, but this time we decided to do a little bit different. I understand you have a Kentucky room, and we would be an honor if you would add this sign to your collection. Okay.
At this time, I would like to ask Fuzzy and Edie to come over to the, you want to move it over to the middle? Would it be easier? Would it be easier to move it over some? Where you get Fuzzy and Edie on each side of the sign, then we'll get all the platform guests around behind.
I never dreamed that this would ever happen to me. When I was a kid walking up and down this two-lane road and very winding in those days, now we got a U.S. highway through 4 lanes. And I used to walk from Belfry, a total about 5 miles, into the Williamson area, in Williamson, West Virginia, as to go to a movie. I never dreamed that this ever happened to me. And I consider it a great honor, and very great honor. So I'm very humbled by this, and I consider it a great honor to have received this award, naming the US 119, the Charles Fuzzy Keesee Corridor. I never dreamed that had happened.